everybody, it's Emily Dark Schooling, and it's time to talk about what I've been reading lately. So we are halfway through the month already. I don't know how that happened. I feel like I blinked and September's already half gone, but I want to chat about what I've read thus far this month. So let's jump into that. The first book I finished in September was Ordinary Monsters by J.M. Miro. I'm not going to talk a lot about this because Tanya and I did an entire live show. I will link that for you down below if you want to go check that out. But this was great. This is a historical fantasy set in Victorian era England, and we're following a few different characters who have something called talents. They have these magical abilities, and they're being brought to this school in Scotland where they will learn how to hone that. And there's a lot of other stuff going on. This is a complicated book to talk about because there is so much happening. This book took me forever to read. It is a chunker, but it was definitely worth it. I am probably going to read the sequel. I don't know when. It's not out yet. It comes out this week. But I'm very intrigued to continue the series because I feel like there's a lot of open questions that I want to know the answers to. And the characters in this book were really, really great. The writing is really good. This is a really interesting story. I definitely recommend if you enjoy historical fantasy, if you enjoy stories about magical children and villains who are really gray, this is for you. I read 2 middle grade books so far this month. I'm probably going to read a lot more than that, but for now, I've read these 2. I read A Meal and the After by Vera Hiranandani, and I liked The Night Diary a lot, so I was really interested in this. And I don't know that I liked this as much as The Night Diary. I think The Night Diary is amazing. I think this is very okay. I'm not sure we needed it. I could not even remember who this character was. It took me a while to piece it together. How does this connect? And then I started to remember these characters from The Night Diary. But we're following Emil and his twin sister Nisha, and they've just moved to newly independent India. It's 1948. This is just after the events of the first book, in which they're leaving because of their religion. I want to say that the characters in this story are one parent was Hindu, one parent is Muslim, but they're not being raised very religiously, so they're sort of these in-between kids, which I think was what drew me to this initially too, was I wanted to read about that perspective. And it was a good story in that you get to explore what that's like, but you also get to meet some characters who are still reeling from the events of the partitioning, and you see a country just starting to figure out what we're supposed to do now that we are a newly independent country, through the eyes of a child. And I enjoyed it, but I definitely, if you're gonna read one book about this event, I would recommend The Night Diary over this. So, which I think I have over here somewhere. Yeah. So I would recommend The Night Diary over A Meal and the After, but if you really loved this book and you want more from some of the characters in it, then you would probably enjoy this. Also, Emil is an artist, so I'm trying to find pictures, and of course now I can't. But there's a lot of art in this book. I say there's a lot of art, but then I can't find any. So there's lots of little sketches that he's making that are a part of the story. So I was listening to the audio for this, and I realized about halfway through that there was a whole bunch of stuff I was missing because of the art. So I had to stop and go back and flip through. So if you have an artsy kid, if you have a kid who really loved this, they'll probably like that. The other middle grade that I read is The Campaign by Lila Sales. And I read this because I'm running a lip bite for it. This is a story about a girl who finds out that their town only has one person running for mayor, unopposed, and that they want to eliminate arts education to save money with taxes. And she loves art and is just like disgusted that somebody would want to take away the thing that she loves so much. So she decides to try to convince her babysitter, who is in her early 20s, like, you should run for mayor so that somebody will be running against this woman and maybe you could beat her. And so the story is about, like, this girl, this 12-year-old girl, like, running a whole political campaign to get her babysitter elected mayor. So it's a little bit silly, but it's a really great example of, one, how political campaigns work, but also, like, how kids can get involved. So for that, I think it's excellent. I didn't love her parents. The way that the parents are written is a little bit frustrating. I would have preferred her to have parents that were not portrayed as being useless, but, like, I understand, like, showing that kids can do the things that matter. Sure, I don't know. I wish that there had been better adults in her life, but other than that, I think this is a really good book for what it does, what it shows about campaigning and what mayors do, like how to get involved in politics even when you're a kid. I think it's great. I read 2 vampire books so far this month. I read Woman Eating by Claire Coda. This was my 12 recommendations from 12 friends book, and it was recommended to me by my daughter Sarah. And I really enjoyed this. I haven't given a rating to anything I've shown, have I? I've just realized I didn't tell you any of my ratings. 4.5, 4 stars. This I also gave 4 stars. I liked this. I found it interesting, but this is definitely not for everyone. I would say this is a book where it's really just following a person around and getting, like, a peek at what their life is like. We're following the main character, what is her name? Lydia, yeah. This is a book where we're following Lydia, who is in her 20s, and she's trying to escape her mother. She's also a vampire. And she was raised by her mother, who is also a vampire. And she just wants to see if she could live on her own as a human, even though she's not a human. It's kind of a slow read because nothing's happening. Like, you're following her, getting a new apartment, starting a new job, like this kind of stuff, but, like, also she's constantly thinking about food and what she eats, which is just blood, obviously, and she's always wondering, like, what is it like to eat? And so she's constantly, like, talking about food and watching videos, like what I eat in a day videos, which I found really interesting because, like, I also watch a lot of those videos, and I also can't eat a lot of the things that I see other people eating. So I get the fascination with that, and I don't really want to give away anything, so I'm not going to talk too much about, like, where this goes, but, like, it's a really subtle book. Like, the vampirism is pretty mild. This is not even remotely scary. Like, I don't even think I would classify this as horror. This is just very much a book about her life and what it's like to be her, and, like, how she's gotten to this place and why she's the way she is. So I liked it enough that I gave it 4 stars, but it was a little bit slow. The other vampire book I read was My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine. I picked this up completely on a whim. I bought it at some point as an ebook, probably when it was on sale, and I didn't really know what to expect going into this. I bought it because I was curious, like, okay, is it silly? How is this vampire being portrayed? Like, I just was curious about it. And it was definitely silly. This is a goofy book. This is a story about a girl who is down on her luck. She's really trying to figure out her life, but she needs a place to live. And she reads an ad in the paper, or on Craigslist, I think, for a too good to be true apartment deal where it's like $200 a month for rent, but you have to live with this guy. And it's like, probably red flags, but she decides to go check it out because it's too good of a deal to pass up. And, you know, it's a vampire that she's going to go live with. And obviously this is a romance, so they end up, like, romantically involved. But the thing that held my interest was how goofy the vampirism was. Like, how silly this book was. I gave this 3 stars. It's cute. It's silly. Will I read the sequel? Probably not. Like, I don't know. It was a good time. I thought that the writing was good enough to keep my interest in the story. Like, even though nothing really happens, you're reading about, like, their relationship and that kind of thing. But there's, you know, figuring out how to date a vampire and, you know, should you date a vampire? What baggage does this bring to the relationship and that kind of thing? And, like, it's goofy. Like, one of his powers is making fruit. Like, it's so dumb. But it was a fun time, so I gave it 3 stars. Then I had 1 DNF so far this month, and that was I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones, and I am so bummed that this is a DNF. Like, I wanted so badly to like this. This is a book that on paper I should love. It is a slasher. It is told from the perspective of the killer. It is set in 1989. Like, I love slashers. Like, I grew up watching slashers, so I feel like I have the background knowledge to appreciate this book. However, this is not for me. The writing style in this book is so beyond confusing. Like, I got a third of the way in before I just said, never mind, I can't do this anymore, and I stopped reading because I could not picture anything. There's a lot of, like, stuff happening, but the way the writing is done, it's so confusing. I could not visualize anything. I don't understand what's happening in this book. And by a third of the way through, like, I made it this far. I should understand what's happening. Like, I should care enough to keep going, and I did not. So I'm really bummed about that because I bought this. I paid full price to purchase this book because I was so sure I would love it. So, kind of grumpy that I didn't. So that's like my first DNF I've had in a while though, so I'm not too mad about it, but I am sad that I didn't like it because I really wanted to. So that is everything I've read so far this month in September. I'd say we're off to a decent start. I've had some pretty good books and some pretty okay books and 1 dud. So I feel like there's potential here for the rest of the month to pick up. So we'll see. Let me know down below if you have anything to say about any of the books I've talked about here. What did you read this month so far? Do you have a standout? If I had to pick a favorite from this stack, I'm going to have to go with Ordinary Monsters, I think. This has been the best thing I've read so far this month, so hopefully something else will be as good as that, if not better. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Happy reading. Bye!